Thank y'all very much. This one is called Northern White Cloud. 1,
Fletcher, I'm told that you started the musical instrument. I'm sure you've been asked these questions over and over and over, so I apologize again for asking the questions again. But you started playing a musical instrument at about the age of 6 or 7? How did that work?
That's about right. The lady that lived across the street from us on Lookout Mountain, Miss Watson, Lena Watson, taught piano. And when I was rather young, I used to, I'm just told this, try to play the piano by reaching up to the keyboard and trying to play it. Well, I started piano lessons at an early age, I don't know how young. And so I took piano for a while. And my mother had rather ambitious musical plans for me. So she started me down at Chattanooga, taking violin lessons from Lillian Chattanoogaben. And I took for a few years there. And of course, my career didn't go exactly the way she had hoped. The piano lessons led to boogie woogie and jazz. And the fiddle, we know where that went, the violin, yeah. But I took lessons for a few years until I started Macaulay. And Macaulay in those days did not have a musical program at all. Now, they had a band that, you know, you could play a trumpet and drums and all that business. But as far as any musical instructions, no. You were expected in those days to play football. And that was designed, of course, to build character. And so it was real hard to try to take music lessons, so they went by the board. But I had enough seeds, I guess, musical seeds planted, so I continued, I guess you could say, fooling around on the piano and the fiddle. And, of course, then the formation of our band started while I was at Macaulay, so that sort of connected. And we got inspiration to form what was called then a hillbilly band. Now, that's politically incorrect these days, I think, to call yourself a hillbilly band, but that was the deal back then. And you know, you would dress up as farmers, hillbillies, whatever, you know, bib overalls, the whole thing, you know, straw hats, and you know, when we first started, we were sort of making fun of the music a little bit. We got away from that as we matured, I guess.
So you played the guitar a little bit too.
I played the guitar, yeah.
So the fiddle won out over the piano and the guitar. Hey, is a fiddle? It appears to me that a fiddle with no frets would be a lot harder to play than a guitar or another instrument.
It absolutely is. And people say, how do you play it in tune? Well, I'm still trying to learn how to play it in tune. I mean, it's a never-ending job. And as you get older and your fingers get a little arthritic and they get crooked, it becomes a challenge once again, and you don't hear as well as you used to. But yeah, playing
It's not that you don't memorize. You just have a feel for where that note is on there. You just know where the note is.
That's supposed to be the way it works. Obviously, you don't nail it every time, and you have to listen very carefully and try to make split-second corrections.
Well, did you hear the joke, the old story about the guy? He only had one string on his guitar, and he only hit the one string, the one note, bing, 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 bing. And he said, "What are you doing that for?" He said, "Well, look, all those other guys are looking for it. I found it." Now you were influenced at an early age. I think you told Earl Friedenberg, Benny Martin had an influence on you.
Yeah. When we were going to McCauley, we discovered the Grand Ole Opry, and I heard the Bill Monroe group play in the late 40s, and it just set me on fire. And I heard, it was maybe hillbilly or country music wasn't coined at that time, and neither was bluegrass coined at that time. Old time, yeah. But I listened to Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys, and it just absolutely set me.
When you heard that music, you knew, there was no doubt, that's what I'm.
I said, I want to be able to do that. Now, there were challenges, a lot of them, because we didn't have television. We couldn't see what they were doing. We heard Earl Scruggs on the 5-string banjo when he first came with Bill Monroe.
Yeah.
And I had a tape, I've lost it now, I'm sure, of when Earl first played on the Grand Ole Opry, and they just went wild. Had to play an encore, but we heard all those notes streaming out of that banjo, and we didn't know how in the world it was happening. We decided, though, we liked the banjo. So what did we do? We went down to a pawn shop, and Ainsley Moses was one of our band members. Of course, you taped him singing. So we walked into a pawn shop there on 9th Street, now MLK, and said we wanted to buy a banjo. So we did, and it turned out it was a tenor banjo. We didn't know the difference. We just bought it, took it home. And, of course, that was a dead-end street. We couldn't make it work. Finally, we got a 5-string banjo, and we couldn't figure out, the picks and the 3-finger style. It took us a long time to break into it. And then, the bluegrass vocals are pretty high-pitched, and we about killed our voices trying to get up there. So it was a long journey trying to emulate or copy that sound.
Now, who are the old golly, goes way back there with Benny Martin, or the Chubby Wise?
Okay, the first fiddle player I heard with Bill Monroe was Chubby Wise, and his breaks are just still legend. And he had a little bit of a classical sound, very pure. He didn't go out on a limb with a lot of fancy improvisation. Bill Monroe used to always say, "Play the tune," and he did. And it was a sweet sounding fiddle, and I thought, boy, that is what I want to be able to do. He could play the fiddle tunes, but in his background there was a little swing, and it showed through in the Bill Monroe music. He left Bill Monroe, and the next one that I really loved was Benny Martin. And as I've said many times, he outdid Chubby Wise in playing Chubby Wise style. He was at his peak. There was none better. And I've listened to his recordings, and it's too bad there's not more of them. And they're right up there today.
Well, tell me if I'm right. Benny Martin took some of what Chubby had, and he didn't copy Chubby Wise, he just perfected his own?
I think that I've said this about fiddle players: we're all thieves. You know, we copy, and he did copy, no question about it. I mean, he took those breaks, but he outdid Chubby. He could do double stops to perfection, in tune, beautiful. So he did copy him and took it another step. And of course, the fiddle players today still copy Benny Martin. Mike Cleveland, you know, some of the very contemporary players today, you can hear Chubby Wise style just coming through strong. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily copying note for note, but they've internalized him.
Got it.
Yeah.
The first time that you performed for an audience, even if it was for family, do you remember the first time that you performed, even if it was in the living room or do you remember that?
I don't know when the first time. I guess the first time I probably did it was at a recital. I tried playing the piano probably, but the first time playing this music was probably when we formed our group at McCauley, and we played for the assembly out there. And of course, that was a very friendly audience. They were very tolerant and ready to laugh and clap and encourage us along. But that's probably the first time we performed, and I wasn't immediately playing the fiddle at that time. I played a mandolin a little bit. I played a guitar, and so they wanted a fiddle, and I said, well, I think I can find my old violin, and I got it out and started doing that.
Okay, so you're talking McCauley. You're talking 1945 or so?
Well, yeah, 46 through 49 probably, yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me about that process, how the band came to be? And again, you're probably tired of talking about this, but I've heard 3 or 4 different versions as to how the band actually came together.
You are about to hear the only correct version, right? We were inspired by a chapel program. I don't know how it happened, but they presented for our entertainment a hillbilly band from Nashville, Tennessee. They may have been driving through and just saw the school and said, hey, let's see if we can get a gig here. Well, it was Zeke Clements. Now, that name doesn't go very far today, but back in those days, he was famous as a yodeler. Yodeling was kind of popular in those days. He was so good, in fact, that when they did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, was it Dopey or one of the dwarfs? When he talked, he yodeled, yodel. Well, that was Zeke Clements' voice. At any rate, he sang a couple of songs that I remember. One was "Pistol Packing Mama," "Lay Your Pistol Down." You remember that one?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And he did "There'll Be Smoke on the Water, on the Land and the Sea." That was anticipating the end of World War II. Well, he performed for us, and we just thought that was the best thing we'd ever heard, and we decided that we needed to form a band. And there were some boarding students, notably Louis Runge from Greenville, South Carolina, and he played the guitar, and he could sing arguably like Eddie Arnold. He could do the Cattle Call. He could do all those songs. And he had a steel guitar, so that wasn't exactly bluegrass. So it was just a collection. We had a harmonica. We had accordion, bass fiddle. Jack Vile played the bass. I think Frank McDonald, who became the MC and the leader, I guess you'd say, for a number of years, he played the harmonica for a while. Yeah. And so we determined that we were going to form a band. And then we did. And we played around. We would play maybe for the Rotary Club and different places, and we'd get a couple of bucks here and there, and that was pretty big stuff for us. So now, the naming of the band is going to be your next question, I believe, isn't it? Sammy Joyce was a athlete at McCallie. He was a great football player. He went on to play some pro baseball, I think. But he could not play a musical instrument. And he could not sing. So what better leader for the Dismembered Tennesseans than Sammy Joyce? There was a band that was playing in the Atlanta area, and it was Lost John and his allied Kentuckians. And so we thought it would be clever, I guess is the right word, clever, to turn that upside down, and we became Found Sam. That was after Sammy Joyce. Found Sam and the Dismembered Tennesseans. And so that's how we came up with the name. And a little later on, we realized how dumb that name was, and we considered changing it, but we never did, and it's too late now. We had to drop the Sammy Joyce because he did not stick around after McCallie. So
I'm glad you kept the name.
As an aside, Earl Scruggs, famous banjo player, played for a time with Lost John.
I didn't know that.
And we found a fan, kind of like these funeral company fans that had Lost John and his allied Kentuckians and all the picture of them. And I've got that somewhere. So that proves the existence of that group.
You and Frank McDonald were like brothers.
Correct, yeah.
Tell me about Frank.
Well, we went through McCallie together. He was a year older and a year ahead of me. And he went on to W&L, and I went to Davidson College. So we didn't really cross paths that much. I did go up and visit him for a weekend one time. Ainsley Moses and I went up there. But then he came home early and got married and started a family. And we continued our education. So we weren't that together for a while. Ainsley Moses and I returned from college. Ainsley was in the Navy for a term, but before long we were all back together. And we really didn't intend to crank up the music, but we got some invitations to play, and we gradually got into it and decided, well, as long as we're being invited to do it, we might as well just go ahead. And so we played, the three of us. We got Jack Vile, who was an old original member of the band, to play the bass fiddle some with us. And then Ed Cullis was like in the 7th grade when we were graduating, but he got inspired to play the banjo, so he joined us. So the four of us, Ainsley, Frank, and me, and Ed, became the hardcore nucleus that continued. And Frank and I had a relationship that's hard to define, but we loved to insult each other. And the harder, there was no boundaries. You could do whatever.
We noticed.
I used to say when Frank McDonald cracked a joke, I had to die.
Fletcher Bright. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. None of our other crowds applauds at that point, and I don't know why we ought to expect you to.
After a show, people would come up to me and say, I wouldn't let him talk to you that way. You know, they kind of didn't realize that we were up there having fun. But we had fun, and when we would go to play a show, you know, we would just crank up and have more fun kidding each other.
He would crack people up. Did a lot of that just roll out, or did he have a prepared skit when Frank McDonald was up there? Do you know?
You know, initially, he was not the MC. Ainsley tried it, and I tried it, and we turned it over to him, and we just crossed our fingers. We didn't know whether he would do good or what, but he kept getting better and better, and he became a legend on that stand-up comedy business. I mean, he was good. I've shortened it a lot. Now, he would talk. I remember one time he got going real hard, and I got Ainsley, and we were playing at Notre Dame, and so we just laid down on the floor. And just waiting, you know. And of course, the crowd was just going, they were going crazy laughing.
Yeah.
And of course, he acted like he didn't know, he didn't realize he was that funny. You know, he just carried it right on.
He had a natural way.
He could, if he threw out a joke and it goes flat, he would just talk right through it and keep searching. And what would happen, usually, if it was a crowd that didn't know him, you know, they would be sitting there sort of in stunned disbelief. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry, you know. And finally, he'd break through, you know, and they'd get it, and they'd go crazy laughing. And we would always say that, you know, if he had quit talking, we could play more.
Well, you know, we found Earl Friedenberg, our friend Earl Friedenberg, found a lot of tapes of you guys from about 35 years ago.
I listened to him. Didn't you?
I put
that out.
Some of them out. I didn't put all of them out.
You couldn't. You'd take you, yeah.
Yeah, we put, I can't remember, about half of what we have. I think we posted.
You cut it back a little bit.
Yeah. But there's some funny stuff.
Oh, there he is, yeah.
The guy was just amazing.
Yeah, we had more fun.
This band has been really, I have to say, a Chattanooga institution and a legend. It's a legendary band for almost 70 years.
Yeah, coming up on 70, yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, what do you attribute to the popularity of that band? That it's just amazing what's happened in the years that you guys have been together.
Well, we've had very little turnover, and I think our objective has always been to have fun and to entertain. And you know, there are obviously better musicians out there, but taking us as a group, I don't know that there's any better entertainment. And we do a respectable job on the music too. We don't like to just, you know, butcher it. We like to do the best we can, but you know, we're not top level pros. We know that, and we're.
Well, there'd be some people want to argue with you on that one.
Well, they don't know it. We know it. We know it.
So how many? Now you guys, you didn't cut up your first record until you were what, 40 years, 39?
Well, we decided that we were good enough to make a long play album. That was the old 33 RPM. And the first one was, I think, 40 Years with the Wrong Band. And we recorded, we went up to Pyramid Studios there on Lookout Mountain. Yeah. And we put it down. And we had fun with it because it was a great prop when we'd put on a show. And Frank McDonald would tout it, and he would kind of make fun of it too, and he would talk about, how we had, unlimited supply, and every now and then we'd sail one out into the audience. And then we made a couple of others, and then of course we've made some CDs since then, just every now and then. We just finished a gospel CD. That's our second gospel CD. The first was made with Frank McDonald and the original band pretty much, and the second one we just completed. So we've had to have some turnover in the band simply because, of course, Frank McDonald passed away. Ainsley Moses is very deaf. We get him out there at Southern College once a year, and he can get through a few songs and he can still belt it out, and he can sing in tune. And I love that recording you made of him doing Wabash Cannonball. That's classic.
Ainsley and I listened to the Grand Ole Opry in the 1940s, and Roy Acuff used to sing this song, and Oswald Kirby kicked it off on the dobro. And it sounds something like this. I think you recognize it.
Tell me a little bit more about Ainsley Moses.
Well, he lived next door to me, and I got interested in it, and I persuaded him, and I realized that he had a good voice, but he couldn't play anything. So we, as I mentioned, bought that tenor banjo that didn't go anywhere. He always wanted to play the 5-string banjo, and when he went to Davidson College, he got some instruction over there from a fellow named Shannon Grayson. Shannon Grayson used to play at the Midday Merry-Go-Round in Knoxville. He was one of the pioneers that played with 3 fingers. And he was living in Charlotte at the time. And he was playing with Arthur Smith, the 2 Arthur Smiths. This is the one, the Arthur Guitar Boogie Smith. Mm-hmm. And so Shannon Grayson was living there playing.
He was on a Starday label, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he may have been, yeah. But he showed Ainsley some of the basics. So he got pretty good at the banjo. And he played the banjo until Ed Cullis came back in. And then reluctantly, I will have to say, he moved from the banjo to the bass. And so, but that made a better sound for all of us. And but he started out, he played mandolin, and we used to listen to Homer and Jethro, and he could play those, Somewhere Over the Rainbow and those kind of things on the mandolin. And we had a little mandolin guitar duet that we could do. So he played. I went to Davidson College. He went to Davidson. We played over there for 4 years, and we played. Our band over there was styled the Cripple Creek Boys. That was sort of just the way it happened. We played over WIST Charlotte. I don't know whether they are still alive or not, but we would. It was a 25-minute drive. We would go in there and play a live show, record 2 shows, and then go back to school. And then we'd go back and record some more and play live and do. So we had a pretty good band, and we traveled around, played a good bit for the school as sort of a little ploy, you know, when they wanted to have maybe a little demonstration of the versatility of the Davidson student body. They'd send us around. So he came back. He went in the Navy, and he played with us right until Frank McDonald died, and he played a little bit after that, and then he said he wanted to become emeritus status because he couldn't hear.
Okay.
So we were...
Doc Cullis.
Doc Cullis...
Now he's a retired orthodontist.
He's retired orthodontist, and he used to listen to us, but he was a good bit younger.
And shorter, as I've heard.
Oh boy, yeah. So we don't hold anything back, do we? Frank McDonald, he used to start on, you know, all of us.
He would crucify.
All of us were short at one time, you know, but Doc's still short, you know, and he would blame it on smoking as a young boy, stunted his growth, you know. That was,
what did he said one time? He's going to shave his head and use him as a coffee table or something.
That was cruel, wasn't it?
Got little Doc Cullis, the shortest 5-string banjo player here tonight, I'm sure. Doc, hard for the folks out in Radio Land to appreciate how short Doc is. We keep Doc around figuring that if it ever gets to where he can't play his banjo anymore, we'll give him a flat-top haircut and use him for a coffee table.
Yeah, he did that a lot, yeah. If he ever can't play the banjo, we'll give him a flat-top haircut and use him for a coffee table.
That's what it was, a flat-top
Yeah.
table. But I don't know where Frank McDonald came up with all that stuff.
But Ed got to be a first-class banjo player, and still at it. He's about 77 at this point, 78, somewhere in there.
You made a comment one time that Doc could sing, but mercifully didn't.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. We when we're setting up the sound system, we always say, do not give him a voice microphone, please.
Okay, the first time that I heard Laura Walker sing The Summer of My Dreams, personally, I was knocked out by it. I was absolutely mesmerized with that song and the way you come in there with that fiddle music.
You know, my wife found that song on a CD that was being sold at Talbot's. Now, I don't know what they were doing selling the CD, but that's where I heard it. No one else had been doing it, except that I had heard a solo fiddle rendition of it without any vocals earlier, and I remembered how pretty it was. So here it was. We got the words, and I listened to that CD and wrote them down and gave them to Laura, and we worked it up. And that must have been 15 years ago, I guess. And we don't play a show without getting a request for it. And one of the fun things I did with that tune was to arrange it for her and our band and the symphony. And it's on that Black Tie and Bluegrass CD. And it is a knockout tune. She still does it. We'll do it at the Three Sisters, I'm sure.
Wonderful.
And we get requests every time.
Summer of My Dreams. Thank you very much.
In the shade of this old tree, in the summer of my dreams, by the tall grass, by the wild rose, where the trees dance and the wind blows, as the days go so slowly, and the sun shines oh so holy on the good and gracious spring, in the summer of my dreams. On the banks of this old stream, in the summer of my dreams, where the deep pool and the fish wait for the old fruit with the wrong blade. There's a field of phlox and clover. There's a small cloud passing over, and then the rains come washing clean in the summer of my dreams. See the raindrops on the grass now, just like diamonds in the air. By the oak grove where I pass now, there's a twilight in the air. As the sun sets down before me, I see my true love waiting for me, standing by the North Stream in the summer of my dreams.
Where did you find Laura Walker?
She had been around town playing with different bands, and she started playing with us while Frank McDonald was still there. Frank, had ALS, but he hung in there. First he had to get a stool to sit on. Then when he was in the wheelchair, he kept going. He had to give up playing, but he kept going. He kept going right on till the end. But she came in and first started, we'd bring her up as a guest. She'd do a couple of tunes and then go back down. And then after Frank died and Ainsley quit, of course there was the opening for the bass fiddle. And so she's been a centerpiece going forward. We used to say that our wives wouldn't let us hire any female members, in our early years, but later on they said they didn't care. But
Her vocal range.
it's wonderful, and it gives us a lot of flexibility. We can do Some of My Dreams and some other things that she can do that are beautiful, that give it a good contrast to just the hard driving bluegrass. So we give them a variety. She can sing the high tenor too. See, that supplied something we could never do, and get up there on that high note.
She can get right out there on that.
Oh yeah. When she sings, she's about that far from the microphone, and when we sing, we're like that.
I noticed that, and thank you now for letting me. A couple of years ago at the Three Sisters, I was up there on stage, and I noticed how far back she would get from the microphone, and it sounded like she was right in it.
Yeah.
Her voice is just amazing.
Yeah. Oh, she's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, now Bobby Martin's been with you for a long time.
He came on board when Frank McDonald couldn't play the guitar. And he is a very tasteful picker. He also can sing any part as far as harmonies go. So if Laura's singing a lead, he will sing a part under her and I'll sing a part under him. I don't know whether that makes any sense, but she's on top and we're harmonizing, so it makes sense. Now, if Don Castle is singing a lead, Laura will sing on top of him, and either Brian Blaylock or any of us can sing a lower part there. We call it a baritone part. So it gives us good.
I noticed on the Summer of My Dreams when you guys were doing that, I noticed Don Castle would come in there, and the level was just right. When he comes in there with his instrument, with his playing.
Yeah.
It was soft, but it was just perfect.
Well, that's good to hear. We during that tune we trade backup.
I know he would just ease right in there and play his part.
And then he'd come back out, and
Brian Blaylock, he'd come in there
with the dobro.
Yeah.
And then I would try to do fills. What we tried, as we say, we don't like to step on the vocalist. We like to. We have to remember that it's all about the song. It's not about the backup guys. But yeah, Don, of course, lives in Knoxville. He used to live in Chattanooga, but he's been in Knoxville for a long time, and he is one of the last people in the textile business still there. Last man standing, we call it. So he travels, and as the market shrunk, they gave him increasing territory. So he goes all the way to the West Coast.
Okay.
And so he is not able to make all our shows these days. So enter Brian Blaylock, who can play every instrument on the stage. And he demonstrated that with his CD, where he played every instrument except the fiddle. And I'm relieved that he doesn't play the fiddle because my job could be in jeopardy. But so he plays the dobro when we got the full band. He plays the mandolin when Don Castle can't be there. And this Saturday, we're going to be out at Mountain Cove Farms playing, and Doc Cullis is on vacation. Of course, as I tell him, he's on vacation every day. Every day is Saturday as far as he's concerned. But he's at the beach with his family. So Brian Blaylock is going to play the banjo.
Okay.
So, see, he's a great utility.
Yeah.
And he's, as I've said many times, every band ought to have at least one musician.
Back on Bobby Martin. Now, he's called the quiet guy.
Yes.
How did he get the label the quiet? He just doesn't talk a lot? Or where did that come from?
You're telling me something I didn't know.
Someone called him the quiet guy, the quiet man. I didn't know if that was...
Well, he really is very happy on stage simply playing the guitar. I have to encourage him to sing, and I have to encourage him to play his guitar so that people will know he's up there on stage. Otherwise, he'll be the quiet guy, so quiet he might as well not be there.
Maybe that's where it came.
I don't know. That's a new one. I'm still learning, I guess. But he is very tasteful on the guitar. But I always have to encourage him to let people hear him.
Now, you have a son, George, who plays a flat top guitar.
Yes.
But he doesn't play a lot.
He doesn't like...
He handles a lot of the PA or the sound system now, or what's...
He just does not enjoy performing. Now,
Someone told me, I don't know, you tell me, that he was an incredible flat top guitar player.
He is. He is. If I'm playing a fiddle tune, I don't know that I can think of a guitar player I'd rather have backing me up, playing rhythm. I mean, strong. When we don't get to play that much. I guess we could, but when we go on vacation, we sit out at the beach. We play a lot, and it's just fun. He's great. He's great. For several years, we formed what we called a fiddle band, and we played for square dances. And it was a little bit of a modification of the Dismembered Tennesseans, because we didn't sing and we just played square dance stuff, you know. But we had George on the guitar, Sam Curran. You probably don't even know, he's a doctor, and he went to Davidson with George, and they played music over there, and Doc Cullis, and we had Bob Chuckrow playing the bass fiddle, and me playing the fiddle. So we had a real good dance, square dance deal going, and George he'll do that, you know, while they're dancing. And we did perform. We played for River Bend one time. We played up at the Laurel Theater, the fiddle band did, and we recorded 2 or 3 CDs, 2 of them studio and a couple of live CDs. We just took them off the board. But we haven't been doing that much lately.
So tell me about the rest of your family. You have 2 daughters?
3 daughters.
3 daughters, okay.
Think a minute now. That's 3 sisters in it.
Okay, 3 daughters and a daughter and one
daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law, and
I've got two
sons.
2 sons. I got Frank, who's not married, and lives in Savannah, and he's a musician. He plays the piano, and is a good jazz player. And George, Lucy lives in Dalton, has 2 children, married to Mark Griffin. And then Elizabeth, we call her Lizzer, lives on Lookout. She has 3 children. And what am I missing? I guess I'm back to George, aren't I? Oh, Ann, you saw her when you came in today. Yeah.
Real nice.
She's
lady.
married.
Real nice. Lady.
Yeah.
Now, you've done a lot of, you were talking to Jane a little earlier there about the Bluegrass workshops that you did or still do. Do you still do that at all?
I'm trying to throttle it back to 1 a year. The year just before this year, I went up to Maryville and did Steve Kaufman's week, and I went to England and did Sore Fingers, and I went to California and did the Walker Creek music camp, and then Nash Camp, which is over near Nashville. I did 4 of them, and I thought, you know, I'm an octogenarian, and I just can't keep this pace up. So I said I turned down Kaufman this year, and I turned down Elkins, West Virginia, up there at Elkins College. So I'm down to 1, and the Nash Camp.
Yeah, so you were flying all over at one point. You went to England, you went to
England.
Canada.
I went to Canada. That's been a few years ago. I went for one time. I went up there with Roland White and played. But
one thing I've been curious about, you have a very, very extremely successful real estate company, to say the least.
Well,
how have you kept that in check with the music? Because you guys have an incredible band. How have you done both ventures so successfully? How have you that happen? I've had several people ask me from time to time, how does he do it? How does he do it?
Well, I guess the premise we have to challenge a little bit in what is successful and what's not. You know, we've been through the worst real estate recession that can remember. We've been through several, and I thought I was home free about 2007, I guess, you know, and little did I know that the worst was yet to come. So I guess what we could say is that we are still here, but it was a tough go. But, you know, the music is I've said that the music is a wonderful hobby, and I don't try to make money on it. I try to pay the band and keep them relative as happy as I can, but I guess the real estate business has to support the habit. And we'll travel. For example, we play every year up in Pennsylvania, so we'll get in our airplane and fly up there, and there's no way in the world that we could charge them enough to cover the airplane expense. So I'm in the hole as soon as those wheels come up. But, you know, we love to do it. That's the whole thing.
So how involved are you in the real estate business now? Are you still going full force? Have you cut back a little bit, or?
Well, let's say it like this. You got here today before I did, right? I'm slowing down a little bit. I'm trying not to do new stuff. I'm trying to kind of organize and look after, clean up messes that I've already done and right now. But I'm still active.
I know you don't like to talk about the awards, but you've won the Tennessee Governor's Award, Untold Fiddle Championships. You've been on the cover of Fiddler magazine with the featured story. You performed in concert for the Chattanooga Symphony Orchestra, Chattanooga River Bend Festival, the Kennedy Center, ABC's Nightly News, NBC's Sunday Today Show.
You make it sound pretty big.
Well, it is pretty big. Was it Frank McDonald that first came up with the, and you've, I'm sure, told this before, about how you won the Fiddle Championship? Was it the Southeast Fiddle Championship? How did that, there was a heavy flood, but I don't have all the facts. But he took that day, it was a heavy, rainy day, and said somehow you won the Fiddle Championship. He loved to rib you more than anything.
You know what mythology is, don't you? You know.
I do.
Okay. Well, it's just a big myth. Now, I do remember winning one out at, as Mick used to call it, Crystal. It was Crystal Cave, but he'd love to mispronounce it on purpose, you know. I get off message here. He used to love to talk about having a Polaroid camera. He would love to mispronounce. Okay, I did win a deal out there at Crystal Cave.
That was the Southern.
Oh, they call, yeah, well, I mean, whatever they called it, Southeastern, Southern, whatever. I don't know. It was just, you know, by invitation, people came out there and played, and I think I won it. But I don't enter them anymore, and I didn't win that many, really, in all honesty. So he couldn't accept the fact that so he had to downplay it and talked about how it rained. Well, it didn't rain, but he loved to talk about how it was raining and the people were mostly trying to get their pickup trucks unstuck out of the mud. And, you know, it was just a big yarn.
And he just came up with the whole thing, right?
It was myth. And then I did enter down at one down near Lake Lanier, and he loved to make fun of that one. I came in third over there, some way down there. But he would love to talk about, I would have come, but for a young girl with a second-hand fiddle, he'd have come in dead last. He'd love to say that.
I do want to introduce real quickly the band to you. Down on the far end is none other than the Southern States fiddle champion, the fellow who, but for the grace of God and two pretty sorry fiddle players, would have come in dead last at the fiddle championship down at Lake Lanier only 2 years ago, but more recently is the Dunlap Coke Ovens fiddle champion, Fletcher Bright.
You guys have done a lot of charity work over the years, and it seems like a tremendous amount of charity work. You're to be complimented and commended for all of the work that you've done.
Well, you know, we do it because we like to, and we're going up to play at a assisted living place up in Cleveland here in a few weeks, and every time they call me, the nurse starts flirting, and next thing you know, I'm booked.
Okay, I have a question for you. When you're all alone and you're at the house, there's just you and a fiddle, what do you play?
All right, I'll give you. I usually play my current tune. Now, by that, I have found out that if I'm not learning something new all the time, I am going backwards. There's no sitting still on that instrument. And the last tune I played was Blackberry Blossom. Now, that's not the Blackberry Blossom that everybody plays. This one was written or played by a blind fiddle player by the name of Ed Haley, lived up in Flatwoods, Kentucky, Ashland, Kentucky, up in that area. But it's kind of hard to play, and so the last time I picked up the fiddle, that's what I was playing. But I try to be learning a new tune all the time. And I found out a few years ago I was forgetting them about as fast as I was learning them, and so I bought a finale program so that I could punch in the melody on a keyboard and save them. So I started collecting tunes, and every time I'm not as aggressive. I used to take a tape recorder with me. When I hear a fiddle player play a tune, I would tape it and take it home and transcribe it. But I've got a collection of several hundred tunes, and it's in a great big book. And so now I'm just trying to go back and refresh my memory on all those things. I love to jam, just play. At Nash Camp over here, probably the most fun my class had was just sitting there playing tunes.
Mm-hmm. So a fiddle is something you have to continue to do all the time. Like it's not like a guitar. You've got your chords and that's it. But a fiddle is totally different.
Your fingers get stiff and they don't reach where they're supposed to go if you don't stay with it. And today I don't play enough. I wish I used to play every morning for an hour. I don't do that anymore. I find myself trying to sleep.